The House Oversight Committee will hear testimony next week about unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs. During a press conference yesterday, Congressman Tim Burkett announced 3 whistleblowers will appear on the Hill. Ryan Graves, a former Navy pilot, David Fravor, a former commanding officer in the U.S. Navy, and David Grush, a former National Reconnaissance Officer with the UAP Task Force. It's a part of a push to require the federal government to provide Americans with information about UAPs and any potential risks to safety.
And while some members are skeptical about the existence of extraterrestrials, they say this comes down to one thing.
Too often, the federal government works outside of the public eye, and in conspiracies and rumors tend to flourish in places where the federal government is silent or not transparent. The American people deserve to know what their tax dollars are funding and what the government knows. That's just plain and simple. The other thing I think is important is that our servicemen and women who are risking their lives for this country and are encountering these devices, we owe it to them to find out what is in the air that might potentially harm their lives. What's disturbing is when you hear about the accounts of 14 near misses in air.
According to Representatives Anna Paulina Luna and Tim Burchett, the Pentagon has tried to block efforts to learn more about the government's knowledge of UAPs, going as far to block members of Congress from seeing information and pictures. A spokesperson for the Department of Defense disputed their claims, saying DoD takes its congressional reporting requirements seriously and is committed to timely and thorough reporting. Well, Jessica, I don't know if I buy the DoD's explanation there, and I'm glad to see members of Congress taking this issue seriously. Even if they're skeptical there with Congressman Burleson, he made very clear that we owe it to the people who are credible, who have talked about encountering these objects, to hear their stories and to hear their testimony. And I think that's exactly right. And not only that, but the American people deserve to know what the government has been hiding from them for decades about the potential existence of these objects and these extraterrestrials. And the more cover-up that there is, the more speculation there is about what they could potentially be hiding. And I think it's far past time for us to have the access to the information ourselves.
Yeah, I think this is checks and balances at play in the best possible way by having Congress use their power to have the whistleblowers testify, but also to set a precedent that this kind of information should be made publicly available, especially to Congress, and it's not up to the alphabet soup of defense organizations, the sort of bureaucratic nightmare that our national security information is governed by. What can be released, what cannot be released, what's deemed safe for the public, what's deemed safe for members of Congress, the DOD, the DOJ, the FBI. It's just a bit of a nightmare. And this is a matter that's not of national security. It's a matter of human importance. People just want to know, like the congressman said, what is in the sky? What could potentially be a threat to our lives? And just what's out there is not something that should be hidden from the American people. We're very aware of the nations that we're not allied with that could be threats to us. We're aware of potential terror threats in the world. We should be allowed to know what kinds of UAPs have been found and what's out there. I don't know what the United States, security coalition would gain by hiding this information from Congress or the public. So it seems like common sense to me.
Yeah, I would very rarely agree with Senator Chuck Schumer on anything, but he has this new piece of legislation that would basically classify this UAP or UFO information in the same way that the JFK assassination records are. And it would basically provide the standard that these are to be made public and available to Americans for their consumption unless there is some really compelling national security reason why they can't be. Now, that exception, of course, would give the government plenty of free rein, I think, to basically put some kind of blanket national security ban across all of these documents. So moving forward, maybe the legislation needs to be a little bit stronger and have some fewer loopholes. But this is a really great start. And it's not like this is some crackpot conspiracy theorist who's bringing this forward. This is the Senate Majority Leader. Again, I disagree with him on plenty, but the fact that he, in his position, is willing to stake his reputation on bringing this legislation forward, I think is really important. I hope that other people sign on to this and move forward with this, because some of the information that we've been hearing from these whistleblowers and from Michael Schellenberger, who we interviewed on this program over the past couple of months, has made pretty clear that there is some there, that there is some evidence to back up what we've been hearing for decades from people who have seen these phenomena. And I agree that this is a matter of human interest. This is a matter of existentialism, of our place in the world and our ability to exist within it, and to treat adults like children is just so freaking classic from our security state, right? From all of these people who constantly hide secrets that they claim are of importance and need to be confidential, but it turns out that they're just doing it for their own benefit or because they don't trust that the public can handle it. It's sort of a for your own good nanny state kind of attitude towards it. And on something this important, something this essential to human existence, I don't think we can play games anymore.
Yeah. Why would the American public be unable to handle it any more than a member of the national security establishment in the United States? It doesn't make sense. And I don't think what's going to be revealed is anything you couldn't also see on the History Channel at 3 a.m. I think the main difference here is that you have people like David Grush, like Ryan Graves, like David Fravor, people who are risking their security clearance to talk about things that happened very recently and things that have been corroborated thanks to the work of journalists like Michael Schellenberger with other members of the intelligence and military community. And so it seems to me that this attempt to kind of soft launch the existence of alien spacecraft, of pilots, is not something that maybe was ever the intent of the national security establishment in the United States, but is something that is the product of people realizing that this information shouldn't be hidden from the public, whether it's people who served in the Navy and the intelligence community, or members and representatives of Congress. I agree that Schumer's legislation is well written and necessary legislation at this point, with how the intelligence community is handling this, even after the whistleblowers have spoken out about it.
I think you're right that this is a situation where the security state had its hand forced by the constant pushing of the whistleblowers and other individuals who have either captured visual evidence of these phenomena or have seen it with their own eyes. I don't think they ever had any intention of releasing any of this to the public. I don't think they had any intention of telling Americans about it unless they were absolutely forced to. Because we see time and time again that they try to discredit people who talk about it. They try to cover it up. They don't take it seriously. It's all a big joke to them. And to some people, it still is a big joke. And I think that's really a shame because, just because this is something that we've seen in sci-fi movies doesn't mean that it's not real. And it doesn't mean that it couldn't exist. And I think any reasonable person wants to see evidence, wants to continue to hear from the whistleblowers, but understands that just because something might be beyond our grasp or might seem scary, that doesn't mean that we should just ignore it or try to prevent people from hearing about it. So I'm really glad that Congress is at least going to have this hearing. It's a first step in what I hope will be many to continue to uncover the truth about the UAPs and the UFOs. We'll be back with more Rising after this.